honor for me to be with colleagues and enthusiasts in the area of agricultural research for development, but also to be in the same room with none other than the chairman of the Apollo Global Innovation, Dr. Segun Aino, who is not only a mentor, but he's a global thinker and a leader we have in Nigeria. So I'm really very excited and delighted to be here. If you allow me, let me try to share my slides, as I have a few slides that I would like to share with you on the subject topic. Hopefully I'll be able to do that in a short while. Great, so here, I'll put it in presentation mode. I want to be sure, I guess if you can just help me, I want to be sure that what you're seeing from your end is the presentation mode of my PowerPoint presentation and not the presenter's view.
It's the presentation mode, sir.
Okay, so there are no other slides on the side, right?
Not at all, sir, not at all.
Thank you, thank you. So just, I want to. So the topic that I was given to present on is post-harvest management and SDGs, SDG 12 in particular. But I wanted to also pitch it around what does it mean, because you can talk of the topic, but what does that mean for Nigeria and for us and for Africa as a whole? And when you speak about Nigeria, you're actually speaking about 1/4 of the African continent. So I have already been introduced. I work here at the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, leading a department that's called Institutional Capacity and Future Scenarios, where I've been for almost about 6 years now. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'll start with a little preamble, then speak a little about the SDG 12 post-harvest losses and management. I will then talk about a few ideas around food systems approach itself. I know there are several experts in this group, but I think it's good to have a little background on that. Then there's a study by FAO, which really concerns the subject matter today. So I want to speak a little about it. And then I narrow down on Nigeria's food system and sustainable consumption and conclude. But before I do that, I think it's only important to speak about FARA. We are the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. We coordinate agricultural research in Africa, working with all the authorizing agencies on the continent, African Union Commission, African Union Development Agency. And we work, our architecture is such that we work with sub-regional organizations. So in Western Africa, we work with CORAF. Many of you will probably be familiar with them. And if we come down to Nigeria, we work with the Agricultural Research Council. But of course, all stakeholders in agricultural research, colleges of education, private sector, organizations like Apollo, they're all part of the forum by default. And on that note, I want to bring all of you warm greetings from my executive director, Dr. Yemi Akimba-Mijo, who even this morning, and I was really, it's really amazing because by 4 o'clock in the morning, he's currently in Thailand, attending on a mission in Thailand. And by 4 o'clock in the morning, he was sending me text messages with some figures and infographics and telling me, look, remember Apollo on this, you know. So this is to show the level of really openness and FARA's willingness to support Apollo. As I said, for us, it's just a coincidence we're Nigerians, but if you solve problems in Nigeria, what you're doing is you're solving 1/4 of that problem in Africa. So FARA works as an observatory. So we look at continental issues, the big issues. What are the current issues? Is it global warming? Is it digital economy? Is it a disease breakout, and so on, how it affects agriculture on the continent, and we advise government on what to do. We do a lot of advocacy, a lot of capacity development, knowledge and information sharing. So what I'm doing here is part of that mandate of FARA, and of course partnership at strategic and operational level. So I want to start this presentation by just dropping this to the group, that for the 800 million people that are going to bed hungry tonight, food is medicine. Meanwhile, there are several places and people for whom that is not a problem today. And in fact, it is so much so that a significant part of that food is wasted. So this calls for responsible and sustainable consumption. And to do that means peace, because when you have food, you will have peace. And good food means good peace. And I want to bring this quote from an Indian statesman. His name is Jawaharlal Nehru. Dr. Amy really likes to quote his saying, which is, most things except agriculture can wait. Now, I want to share with you some of the numbers that we have in terms of the continental potential. We have 70% arable land on the continent, with 80% fresh water. The youngest population is found in Africa. Over 60% of people living in Africa are young. We have an untapped market in terms of contribution to GDP. But a lot of people are employed in agriculture, more than 70%. And if you want to bring about economic transformation, you want to have less and less people in that area. We have 50% urban food market, so that's quite huge, and 10% share of agriculture in export. Now we need to improve this number. So what you have here are good and bad numbers that we need to work on as we think about agriculture, as we think of SDG 12, and as we think of post-harvest loss. So, and I want to bring us to give this context in terms of what has been happening on the continent. In 2003, all the heads of states of Africa got together and signed what they call Maputo Declaration. What it means is that they were going to invest 10% of budget to agriculture within 5 years, but it didn't happen. And then around the same year, there was a summit in Abuja where there was commitment to improve food. There was a commitment to improve our capacity for production and utilization of fertilizer and fish. That also went. Then strategic commodities were identified, including cassava, maize, and so on. Then by 2010, FARA actually conducted a kind of study to see where we are in terms of achieving these goals, the Maputo and the strategic commodities and the Abuja Declaration. And what we found out is that we missed that opportunity because that investment was not made. So in 2014, all African heads of state got together and signed the Malabo Declaration. The Malabo Declaration is directly linked to MDG 1 at the time and SDG 2 now, and ultimately SDG 12. Now, the reason why I bring this is so that we have this continental outlook in terms of our journey, so that as we think about SDG 12, as we think about what we can do to mitigate the impact of waste, food losses, and so on, we know where we are on the global scale. And the report for how each country performs in this respect is presented in what is called the CAADP Biennial Review Report. For those of us who do not know, that declaration, the Malabo Declaration that all the African countries signed to, is a commitment with 7 different commitments including reducing loss, doubling productivity, improving investment in agricultural research. So there's a scorecard for it where FARA and other stakeholders every year conduct a kind of assessment to find out where each country is in terms of the score. So if you look at this box, what you're seeing are numbers, some in red, some in blue, and others in green. Numbers in green means that country, and it's the only country on this box, which is Rwanda, will achieve the target of Malabo. Those in blue are progressing towards achieving those targets, and those in red are not progressing. So where we are, you will see Nigeria here. We are at 5.42. So we all have responsibility in supporting our country and playing our different roles as scientists, as private sector persons, to contribute in achieving this target. And one way we do that is by ensuring that we achieve the SDG 12, because the CAADP indicators, the targets of CAADP are directly linked to SDG 12. So the goal of the SDG 12, to speak about SDG 12, is to ensure that we have sustainable consumption and production patterns. And over the years, economic and social progress has led to environmental degradation, which is today threatening our survival. And this has been exacerbated by COVID, but at the same time, COVID was an opportunity for us to put together recovery plans so that we use our resources more efficiently and with more consideration for economic life and ensuring environmental agreements. So this figure here is of course, is from the UN, and you see there are the triple planetary crises that are driving unsustainable patterns of consumption and production: climate change, the loss of biodiversity, and pollution. In addition, too much food is being lost or wasted in every country, from harvest to transport to storage to processing. Up to 13.3% of the world's food is lost after harvesting. And from up to 17% of that is wasted at the consumer level on our table, from house to the grocery store, household, and in restaurants. And then we have this over-reliance on natural resources. There's an increasing, rising number of up to 65% in terms of our reliance on natural resources. Then there's the other waste that sometimes is often ignored, and that's the e-waste. Currently in sub-Saharan Africa, including Nigeria, only 1.6% of our e-waste is actually managed effectively. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of ensuring that we address sustainable consumption and production pattern. And the evidences are all over. I am from Kura local government. We are one of the agricultural bases of Kano. We produce tomato, we produce rice, and so on. And every year it's the same story. Tomato can be 100 naira today, but in the next 30 days, it's 1,000 naira, basket of tomato, for example, just as an example. And sometimes it's lost, like you can see in this picture. So approximately 1.3 billion metric tons of food in Africa are lost immediately after harvesting. And this has been estimated to range between 30 to 40% as loss to farmers that produce them. And when you think in terms of the contribution of food losses and waste to global greenhouse, what we now know is that food production is responsible for about 26% of global gas emission. But in terms of the loss in the supply chain, consumer waste, and the food eaten, emissions that arise as a result of that waste is about 6%. So for To address this, you really have to apply post-harvest management strategies to ensure that you handle, you store, and transport agricultural commodities better. And in addition to all of that, there are multi-layer of crises impacting African agriculture and Nigeria. We have the extreme weather condition. You will see the evidence all over. In addition, we have breakout of pests and diseases. Over the years, we've had fall armyworm, we've had the locusts in some regions, we've had the breakout, the COVID pandemic itself, and then market volatility in terms of prices. As you know, we're all living in Nigeria. You know how much you bought rice 3-4 months ago and how much you're buying it today. In addition, we have the conflicts, the different conflicts at various regions, the insurgencies, the kidnaps, and so on. And then there's the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war that's impacting on not only food prices, but also on fertilizer production and availability. And all of this affect all of our food and nutrition security and are connected to the food losses and the wastes that we generate. Now, I want to look at this figure. What this figure speaks about is how you can reduce global greenhouse emission from food. At the top, what you have in ash color is business as usual. If we continue to do as we do now, if we continue to waste food, if we continue to produce as we like, business as usual. What is happening is that from 2020 to 2100 is that we will be producing 1,356 billion tons of warming equivalents of carbon dioxide. So that is 1,356 gigatons. Now, if you calm down those bars in blue, if you reduce the yield by 14%, you will come from 1,356 billion tons to 1,162. So you will reduce it by 14%. If you have food waste, the amount of food that we waste, whether it's at farm gate level or on the table, if you reduce it by half, you will come from 1,356 billion tons to 992 gigatons, all right? So that's 992 billion tons of the warming equivalents of carbon dioxide. And this is equivalent to 27% reduction. Then you can apply the same for healthy calories. If you begin to eat more healthy calories, that's the reduction. If you apply the best farm practices, the reduction is by 40%. If you plant-rich diet, if you eat more of plant-rich diet, the reduction is by 48%. And if you combine all of this, all the blue bars, if you apply those strategies, the reduction in global greenhouse gas emission from food will be by 63% reduction. So this is incredible, this is significant, and no one country can do it alone. And that is why the Sustainable Development Goal, number 12, is quite critical and important. Then, so to do that, I want to say that realizing the SDGs depends on transforming the food system. And I'm bringing in the concept of food system because you cannot look at food or agriculture in isolation. So this requires an understanding of what is food system first, what are the drivers of food system, what is the direction, what are the uncertainties you face. If you sit down as a nation now, like Nigeria, you should try to map out scenarios. What could possibly happen to my food system in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, and so on. So we need to take action to avoid longer term potential catastrophic. And COVID has provided us with that, that possibility and opportunity of some sort. So you have to look at all of the SDGs together, including the SDG 12. So I want to introduce us. I know some of us are familiar with what is a food system, but I want to introduce us to the concept of food system. Here, what you have is at the center, the rectangle in the middle is your system, is where we are. You're surrounded by a natural system. I'm sorry, I get that. There's someone with their mic on, and that's distracting me.
Yes, I'm trying to mute the person.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sorry about it.
Thanks. Yeah, sure, no problem. So you have where you are in Nigeria, for example, you could say, what is the food system of Nigeria like? The food system of Nigeria encompasses the natural system, so the environment, the human system, the people living, and the food system itself, the food that we eat, from production to processing to retailing to consumption to what we dispose and what we store. And at the top, you have all the logistics, the finance, the communication, the research and education needed. At the bottom, you have government supporting and the regulations governing food standards, what are the rules of the game, and so on. If you have to have a good system, you have to have a good understanding of the drivers of that system so that you can have good food system outcomes. So let me take that again. At the center, you have the food system. So each country will have its food system, those different segments of the food: production, processing, retailing, consumption. So if you want to have good food system, means healthy diet, safe, accessible, is affordable. Many have resources to buy it. It employs people. It is environmentally friendly. It does not contribute much to greenhouse emission and so on. So the drivers for that are demographic development, consumption, technologies that you invest in. What is the market? How is the climate like? What are the policies and geopolitics relevant to that? And at the end of the day, you want to have a good outcome. You want to have economic and social well-being. You want to have people with food and nutrition security. You want to ensure that your environment is safe and sustainable. So this is what a food system like. And to talk about SDG 12 and food losses and waste and food management, you have to look at it from the perspective of the food system. Now, I want to introduce you, like I said, to this report that just came out. Actually, we were last week in Montpellier to launch this report. This was a study that was conducted over the last 3 years. It talks about the future of food and agriculture, drivers and triggers of transformation. What is the state of food system globally? And at the core of this report and the outcomes and the implication is the SDG 12 and food management. So once again, I bring the food system framework. Please don't be confused by this. It's not that complicated. Just look at it. I spoke about the food system, which is in the middle, environmental, socio-economic system, the agri-food system in the middle. The drivers are on the left and the outcome on the right. So what this study did was to look at the most important agri-food system drivers and rank them from 1 to 18. They grouped them. So number 1, if you look, it's in orange, population dynamics and urbanization. Number 2 is economic growth and macro outlook. Number 3 is cross-cutting interdependencies, and so on. And each driver is coded to a specific area of triggers, or what they call accelerators. So there's institutions and governance, there's consumer awareness, there's income wealth distribution, and there's technologies and innovation. So this is the model that they use in coming up with a kind of map, a future scenario of what the world will look like in the context of food and agriculture. And I'll explain the study. I'll give you a little summary of the study shortly. And they were guided by what we call trade-offs. Trade-off is when, for example, you want to ensure that you have a healthy diet, but you also want to eat meat, or you want to ensure that you produce a lot of things, but you also want to make sure that you conserve the environment. So if you look at this table, what you have on one hand are objectives, good objectives. On the other hand are also good objectives. So what you need to do as Polo Innovation Hub, or as a country like Nigeria, or as an institution, is to look at your own objectives and see where you can trade off within the context of achieving the SDG 12. How do you ensure that you produce highly nutritious food without causing damage to the environment? So I'll not bother you listing these objectives, but just the concept is I want to introduce is the concept of trade-offs along development patterns. And of course, I will share the slides with the organizers, and I think they'll make them accessible to you. This is the outcome of the FAO study on the future of food in agriculture globally, including Nigeria. And what they did was to plot what we call scenario map. Again, just follow me and let's understand this quadrants. Right, so what you have is a graph with 4 quadrants. Now, before I explain the quadrants, the outcome of the study is that you want to have what they call the 4 betters. You want to have better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life. And to do that, you have to practice the principle of trade-off that I mentioned earlier in the other table. All right. So now look at the quadrants. At the top left-hand side, what you have is adjusted future. This is where we are. There's climate change. There are innovations coming. There's market concentration in some places, but in many other places, there's poverty, there's inequality. There's increasing food prices. So you want to move from that position to an adjusted future where there's better nutrition. So that's you're moving now to the top right quadrant. You want to move to better nutrition and better life. The square with dash is what will be ideal as an adjusted future, what we call AFU. Then you want to also ensure that you trade off for sustainability. So that place where you have TOS is where you want to be in terms of ensuring that there's safe environment, there's better nutrition, there's better life. But ultimately, what every country wants to get to is this better production and better environment, which is in the last quadrant at the bottom on the right. If you do not do anything, if you go business as usual, what you will have is race to the bottom, where there will be increasing poverty, there will be increasing inequalities, and so on. So this is how future studies are presented. Some of you that might be interested in foresight and the tools that I use in mapping scenarios like this can check on the FARA page and on the internet. There are several tools to help you. But I just want to bring this tool here and introduce you to it to understand the outcome of this report. So what the study did is to create a scenario, a future in the next 20, 30 years of what the world should look like in terms of the future. And they came up with this, the safe and just space for humanity, or the donut. So you see the concentric circles. Inside there, there's the yellow, where you have all these different, the foundational frameworks, housing, network, energy, water, food, and so on. As you increase in that space, you continue to expand. You will reach a space where you overshoot, where you cause acidification of the ocean, chemical pollution, you increase nitrogen and phosphorus loading, and so on. So you want to ensure that you are within the safe and just space. And, in the principle of economics, this what they call the regenerative and distributive economy. All right. So what countries need to do is to map out their own food system, think about the critical drivers of that food system and its outcome, and map out where they really want to be and which areas to tinker with to be part of the safe and just space for humanity. And there are several tools to do that. But I would just say that the challenges for Nigeria's food system, therefore, is to produce more food on less land, less water, in conditions that are increasingly unpredictable in terms of climate and markets, and then with less manual labor. And very, very important to reduce the amount of waste and losses and produce more nutritious food so that it is safer for consumption and move up the value chain. And to do that, you need to apply more science, as no country has ever achieved that without applying science. You want to move out, you want to organize the value chain and reduce post-harvest losses by removing these triggers for that bring about food losses and food waste. You want to leverage on smart technologies to reduce post-harvest losses. And I would say that for us to achieve sustainable consumption in Nigeria, I have identified these 5 things that we can do, in addition to regulations and policies where government will come in. Consumer education, promoting sustainable production, develop sustainable supply chains, support local production, promote circular economy, and encourage energy efficiency. Each of this is an area that requires heavy investment and oversight and regulations and implementation through policies by government and the private sector and so on. Now, I want to bring it down to the level of Okpolo. What at the Okpolo Global, what can we do? As an enabler of innovation, as a creator of that ecosystem of innovation, I'll say Okpolo can promote sustainable agricultural practices by introducing farmers to farming techniques that are environmentally friendly. And the outcome will be increased crop yield, reduced waste, improved quality of the produce while we conserve the environment. And then promoting the use of digital technology in agriculture. And doing that will mean better yield, reduction in waste, and increase in revenues. And then the e-commerce platform. Sorry, there's a missing E there, but it's e-commerce platform. So creating an e-commerce platform that connects farmers directly with consumers. It may seem not directly related to food waste and post-harvest management, but it really is, because when you connect farmers through these platforms, what you're doing, you're creating opportunity for farmers to earn more, so consumers can buy fresh produce at a lower price. And it's really very interesting because Okpolo, as I know, is already very much involved in financial technology. Dr. I know is a guru of fintech. So this is one niche that Okpolo Global can really key into. Then financial inclusion. Okay, so I was speaking about fintech. So can Apollo Global can contribute in providing access to digital financial services like mobile money, digital credit card, and so on. And we also the impact of this. Like I said, I'm from Kano, and during the recent crisis, in fact, the ongoing crisis and scarcity of notes in Nigeria, a lot of people in rural areas, especially, were subjected to very significant hardships due to the scarcity of cash. All right. So when you create platform for financial inclusion, you address this and protect and support farmers, to manage their cash flows and access credit and expand their fund and protect their crops against unforeseen events such as pests and diseases. And then capacity building. And I think this is really where Apollo Global and FARA can work together in terms of training, learning, knowledge, skills, coaching, and galvanizing global players in the field in these 5 areas that I have listed. So to support the agri-tech startup ecosystem, replicate more Apollos all over the country and Africa, increase deep tech startup, integrating artificial intelligence in managing post-harvest losses and ensuring that we achieve that SDG. And of course, learn from global players, global disruptors, big countries where there's some level of success in addressing these key problems. And FARA is well positioned and disposed to really support Apollo. I was speaking with Agatha the other day in terms of how we can move forward with this. And I'm sure after this, moving forward, we will implement that. Then as individuals, what can we do to contribute to SDGs in managing waste? You can reduce your own waste, you can be thoughtful about what you're buying, ensure that you do not throw away food, reduce consumption, carry reusable bags, and then taking informed choices in the way that in the things that you buy. Buy locally, it might seem it's small, but imagine if everyone decides, okay, we will be producing our own food, we will be buying from local retailers. What you will be doing is boosting local economy and ensuring that circular economy. Then you can buy suitable and local sources. So that's the point number 6 that I've just made. And in conclusion, I want to say that achieving sustainable consumption in Nigeria requires collaborative efforts. All of us have a role to play. The universities, centers of learning, centers of research, government, private sector. We can all achieve a sustainable future that supports economic growth and social development and environmental protection to achieve SDG 6 to 12. So I want to stop here and I want to thank you for your time in the various language that I understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It's a thoughtful session, and I know we've actually learned a lot from this presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I will just, before I open the floor for interactions, question or comments and contributions, I just want to do a brief recap of what you have actually said so far, and the role of where we can play in, and our own individual contribution, be it as a person, a consumer, or a producer in that space. So the issue of post-harvest losses management all have been coming from declarations and efforts across the globe to be able to check that. We have the Maputo Declaration and the Malabo Declaration, all aiming towards increasing productivity, investment within the agri space, and reducing the post-harvest losses. And how far as a country have we actually gotten to reducing waste within the food chain? we, based on the scorecard, we are progressing. We are not there yet, but we are moving towards achieving that, to at least catch up with Rwanda. And for Nigeria to move from the level of progressing to arriving at that destination is a collaborative effort from each and every one of us, either as a producer or a consumer. We know that globally, there has been a cry and a move towards climate change reduction. And agriculture contributes to some extent the bulk of the effect on the climate based on our activity. Agriculture as a space is benefiting from the environment and is also contributing adversely to the environment. When there is no rainfall, production is affected, and when production is actually not done in the proper way, the climate is affected. So it's a bimodal approach that agriculture is having. So, and the way for us to be able to reduce our negative effect on the climate and the environment is us making a conscious effort to reduce our losses. What we can consume, we go for it and not waste food at the consumer level. Then at the production level, what can we do to be able to store what we have when we are unable to dispose of them through sales? That also is a key challenge which you have mentioned. And when we look at the agri chain, about 63% contribution of things not well done could affect, well done could affect the climate change, and will reduce the effect of climate for us. So, and I love the part you've brought Okpolo into the spot, and a lot is actually going to be taught towards that area, and we'll follow up on the discussion that we have with you already on that. So the floor is open. If you have any question or a contribution to this conversation, the floor is open and you can raise your virtual hand and ask your question. So doctor can react to them, and any other person that is also knowledgeable in this area too can also contribute to it. So Babangida Babura, your hand is raised, so you can go on, you can ask your question. Please, Babangida, you can ask your question, please. Okay. I guess he's not. We can't hear you. You are muted. Or we can't hear you. Okay, while we await him to speak, any other person with question, you can indicate. I have a question to ask, but I want the floor to come up with their question and contribution. Okay, let me start with my question. So as an individual in Nigeria, and we know that before now, to some extent, we are food sufficient, and now we have an issue of being able to feed ourselves, and we are depending more on importation. And you mentioned towards the latter part of your presentation, support for local production. So how will farmers be able to get this support? Somebody, my voice is echoing from someone's else.
It's because you have two devices, I think, in the same place. So you need to mute
one. Is it from me? Yeah, one is muted.
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, it's muted. Okay, so based on the fact that we are trying to move to the level of a self-sufficiency now, and encouraging the small-scale farmers to increase production when there is no ready market, in quotes, to get for them to dispose of their commodity, because they produce deep into the rural community. That's where production is being made, and having to bring those produce out for the consumers to get is a challenge. So how can we bridge that gap? They don't have much. They don't have a lot of produce being wasted, and the consumer at the other end have more food on their table to eat. So where can that support come in, and who can play in that space to be able to achieve that?
Okay, well, not being an expert in agricultural economics, right? But I will just attempt to say that, in terms of contributing as a person, as an individual, to buy local, sometimes it may not be the direct produce of the farm. Sometimes it can be really the basic things that you need locally. But in terms of improving that, I would say we need to improve in infrastructure a lot, in terms of connecting the farmers, in terms of bringing together all the various stakeholders. In FARA, there's something that we call innovation platform. And we have, during the launch of Apollo Global in Osun State, right, in the two different places, we had a training program where we grouped together a kind of a blueprint for establishing Apollo Innovation Platform on cashew and on tomato. All right. So when you apply the instrumentality of innovation platform, the innovation platform is an instrument that brings together all stakeholders along the value chain. So that is the farmer, the supplier of fertilizer, those who provide seed, the banking sector, somebody that's in the banking sector, government, local leaders, everyone, women, young. You bring all of them on the table and say, hey, we have this problem of excess potato or excess tomato, and we want to ensure that we support local economy, we support circular economy. How can we do that? So they come up with a strategy, with a business plan, and how to do it. The economists among them will identify, oh yeah, when I studied in Spain, I knew this guy, he could connect us with this import-export facility. The banker will say, yeah, in the bank, I know this person, he can connect us to Agricultural Development Bank. I can help you package it. The private sector person say, I have some cash, I can invest in this. They come together, they build, the women say, we will organize our group, we'll do it. So at the end of the day, maybe you'll see them ending up with a pack house. They buy a vehicle, they register their company, they start to export, they go to Nigerian export promotions. I'm just giving you a hypothetical example of how this can be done. As a local government chairman, for example, you can implement an innovation platform. And what is key? What is key in innovation platform is this. Everyone that is in an innovation platform is there knowing that they will have money. Okay, so I'm not in it just for the community. Okay, ultimately we will cut reduction, we will reduce food losses and waste. Ultimately, we will contribute to the SDG 12 goal. But everyone is there, will have some income to take home from an innovation platform, because there will be an IP manager, there will be cash flow, there will be strategy for where the money will come from, where they will invest. They can invest in, some trust fund, to be revolving the funds and so on. They can apply for project funding from donor organizations to support that and continue to strengthen the innovation platform. So this is one way you can do that. But as I said, I'm not really an expert in economics, but this I think, from my experience working with the various stakeholders, the innovation platform approach has worked. It has been known to increase the income of farmers and small and all the stakeholders around it by 46%. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if okay, Baba, you are okay, you can speak now. I guess you are able to resolve the issue now. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have some challenge with my other device, so I have to switch my device. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. Thank you, for your talk. My question are two. One, how do we see Nigeria in the next, in the short term and the long term, in terms of these SDG goals? So I know you discussed some of this, but I want it to be discussed directly on it. Secondly, the contribution of the small scale farmers and the industrial scale farmers in achieving these goals. Can we have a specific, do you have some specific data telling us some information about that? Then, and sadly, sorry, I have another question. How the contribution, if we take the aggregate performance by regions, since Nigeria can be considered in according to regions and the states. Are we moving together in this and contributing to agriculture, or some are far lost behind? So what region or what states are far lost behind in achieving these goals? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Babangida, for those questions. So in terms of the performance of Nigeria towards achieving the SDG, I think the UN has a if you like, a barometer where you can monitor the progress of each country towards achieving the sustainable development goals. But I have shared the CADA barometer, which is at a lower level. So this is what you have at the top. Globally, you have the Sustainable Development Goal. If you come down at the level of African Union, we have what we call AU Agenda 2063, which has different pillars. And one of those pillars speaks to agriculture. And in agriculture, you have the CADP, Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Plan, where you have 7 indicators, reduction in waste, doubling productivity, and so on. So in terms of Nigeria's performance, I think it's reasonable. You've seen the result that I have shown. It's reasonable. There's this prediction for growth, but then also there are other drivers. There are other critical triggers that we need to be aware of. And especially government needs to really invest a lot in terms of research, especially research around foresight and scenario mapping. What could possibly happen? What can we do to improve our food system? And of course, we have our National Investment Plan, NITE, right? So the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Planning, they will all have numbers in terms of where we are. I do not have those figures at the moment, but I'm sure this should be publicly available. Then in terms of the gap, bridging the gap between the smallholder and the industrial farmers, I think when you do the multi-stakeholder approach, you organize, you connect those different stakeholders around a platform, you should be able to record some level of impact in terms of food security and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And also, let me just, sorry to cut short. Okay. I will share here in the link in the message box, a link where you will see the current status of Nigeria's food system, a study performed by IFRI. So you should be able to pick some of the numbers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll be expecting that. Okay. No other hand is up. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Also, sometimes this conflict between small scale holders and large scale projects. Can I raise this?
No, you can speak, Aruna. You can speak.
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can speak.
I think it's the same person that spoke earlier.
Okay, oh, he used, oh, okay, sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. The link is already on the chat box. Thank you, Dr. Abdulrazak, for that link. So another question came to mind. The present situation of Nigeria now, and with respect to food production, because actually we can't talk entirely on the food waste management without production being focus of it, because it is from what we produce that is where the loss will be coming from. And we have the rates. I will speak from experience and of what I see suppliers, the way packaging and when they buy from the producers and the way they pack it and they get to the final destination for sales. There are kind of injuries that are being inflicted on those commodities that also quicken the rate of deterioration of those commodities and make the waste from food production even more increased. So what I want to find out, are there efforts either as individual stakeholder or as an organization which you are part of, or the government, in that particular regard of how produce can be product handling, the effect of product handling now in managing post-harvest losses, if something is in that area, sir?
Yes, there are several efforts actually. If you go through our universities, there are many researches ongoing. Although we have that challenge of researchers remaining on the shelves and not moving to the end users. But there's something happening. And I think in Nigeria, as far as post-harvest loss and management are concerned, I will give you one name. And the name of that person is Professor Linus Opara. Professor Linus Nwazurike Opara is a global leader in the development and packaging and patenting and scaling technologies around post-harvest losses and management. He still is, I think, a professor at the Stellenbosch University in South Africa. Currently, he's in Nigeria. And I think Apollo Global can benefit significantly with partnership with Professor Opara. He is the leader of a UNESCO Center for Biotechnology, which is located at Nsukka. So they have several programs, and he has mentored and taught many, many Africans. In South Africa, he has packaged many perishables, developed many technologies, to mitigate the impact of perishables and post-harvest losses. So I think that's one link I can give you, but there are several efforts on the continent happening, and even at the level of African Union, two key areas where you see a lot of convergence in terms of stakeholder engagement, steering policy reflection and changes, is climate change and post-harvest loss. It's just that the challenges are so enormous, sometimes the impact are not really seen, but it's there.
Thank you so much, sir. I have Fola Yusuf. Your virtual hand is raised. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Kola Yusuf, you can speak. You are muted, but we can't hear you. Okay, if you're unable to speak, you can type in your question in the chat box. I will read it for our facilitator to respond to it. If you're having issue speaking, you can send in your question. I will read it out for him to respond to it. Okay. Okay, while we await him sending in the question, I just want to, Haruna, your hand is up again. Okay. Can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir, for the presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to talk. The other time, I'm not the one talking, it's someone that was talking, and I'm the one that raised the hand. That's why I kept quiet for him to finish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So first of all, no, it's not, though it's not a question. I don't know, please, if you can give us a recap on one slide, sir, because I am like trying to understand, then I miss some things. The 4 betas, that 4 betas, beta production, beta nutrition, and beta environment, and beta life. So that quadrant, I'm trying to understand it more, sir. So please, if you can give us a recap on it.
Okay, so let me go back and try to share the slides. It's here.
And the second thing before I thank you, my other question is, sir, please, how can we in Nigeria bridge the gap between research and the implementation of the research? That's the research, if the research is conducted, now how can that research be taken to farmers? Because there is a lot of research going on, though we still need to explore more, but mostly the end users, that is the farmers, they hardly got information about all these types of research, the techniques, the innovation. And I think they are the, more especially smallholder farmers in the country, they are the main agents, or let me say, accelerators of the development. So they need to be well informed about all this research. And there is a lot of problem in that. I know mostly almost all the states in the country have ADPs, agricultural development projects, but they are not functioning now. So there is a lot of gap between research and the farmers in the field. So I don't know, and how can this be included in mapping out food systems? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. So here, I hope you can see the slides, the slide with the quadrants.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is what you have. This is the concept of 4 betas came about from the study that was conducted by FAO over the last 3 years, where they tried to study what will the future of food look like globally. And they came to the conclusion that if you want to have a sustainable, to achieve sustainable development, you need to have these 4 betas. Better production. Better production does not mean more production. It means production that is environmentally friendly and respects the environment and, you know, all those principles. Then better nutrition. It means food that is nutritious and safe consumption and accessible and affordable to as many people as possible. Better environment. You want to do agriculture without causing undue damage to the environment. And you want to have better life because through agriculture, you should create wealth, increase income, and ensure that there's equity and inclusivity. So I think before this before this graph, let me take you back. I need to take you back to, sorry, I'm trying to click back to. I need to take you back to this, because this was what was used to come to the quadrant. Like I said, in the center, you have the food system. So they did a kind of ranking of all the agri-food systems drivers. And how do you do that? You bring together different people from various backgrounds. You ask them, what is the most important element for improving food in your country or in your region or in your area? They will select from among these different points, the 18 of them. So in the end, you'll come up with the ranking. So that ranking is from 1, 2, 3, up to 18. And based on that, you will then plot a graph. There are various tools that I use in conducting this scenario mapping. I will not get into the details of the technique, but based on that stakeholder engagement that they hold and the probing research and what we call the wheel of the future, they come up with this, where you try to plot a kind of alternative scenarios and their outcomes. So here you have 4 quadrants. One, the first is adjusted future. Then at the bottom, you have more of the same. Then you have the race to the bottom. And then you have at the top end, on the right-hand side, you have trading off for sustainability. So what they are saying is that the world can be in one of these 4 different futures. We can decide to adjust for the future so that we move from where you see from here, this place. We move from this place to this quadrant. So what if we are here, if we are in this place in the future, it will be good for us because then we will have better nutrition and better life.
Yeah.
You understand? If
Yes,
we
sir,
move,
yes, sir.
if we move to this quadrant, what we will have better nutrition, better life, better production, and better environment. We'll have all the 4 better. So this is where everyone should strive to be. This is where everyone should start from.
Okay.
Because we can adjust to the future. We move from here to this place. This is where you will be. That is the race to the bottom, where there's high level of poverty, high food price, high inequality. If you go business as usual, but you can improve a little, which is like more of the same. So in the context of, for example, CADA, the performance of Nigeria in that law, we are more of the same. It's better than race to the bottom, but you want to get to adjusted future so that you can move to trade-off for sustainability. And each one, adjusted future is better nutrition, better life, but it does not necessarily mean better production or better environment. But trading off for sustainability is better nutrition, better life, better production, better environment, because you have traded off some of the things. Instead of too much production, you have tried to regulate it so that the impact on the environment is not much. You can do it. You have the capacity to produce more, but you have traded off for that because you want to have a better environment. You understand the point?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm getting it.
And so on. Yeah. So this is the way the quadrant is. I will also share the link to this report of FAO. You can read about it. It's a very, very interesting study, but I think you will find it useful. I hope that is clear enough, at least for now.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you so much.
clearer
Very
more
clear.
clearer than before. Yeah. Yes.
These explanations
so much.
it give more insight to understanding the CADA report, actually. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. So we do this exercise is something we do all the time. We do a lot of we bring together different stakeholders and we do the mapping. There are different tools to approach it. There's something called rich picture. There's the future wheel. There's the seed of the future. You try to imagine what could happen in 20 years. People just say the things and then you plot them and you end up with the scenario map with different futures that can be used actually by our leaders to take decisions. So for example, imagine the new government coming here in Nigeria, conducting a foresight analysis on our food system, bringing different experts in. They can actually plan for, they can actually sort of map scenarios, what could happen in the next 8 years and do something about it. So that's the thing about food systems approach and foresight. It does not mean that you're predicting the future. No, you're preparing for the future because there are different alternatives in the future. There is what could possibly happen, what you would want to happen, and what you don't want to happen, and all of that. So once you identify the drivers, the triggers, you will be able to, you will know where to interfere so that you can shape a better future. And the better future, the future that we want is a future where there's more nutrition, better life, better production, and a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I don't think there is any other question coming in from participants. No hand, there's no virtual hand up again. So I really want to appreciate your presence and
hello.
Okay. Hello, sir. Okay. Fola Yusuf. Okay.
Hello. Yeah,
you can speak up.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, and also thank you to our guest lecturer, Dr. Abdulrazak. My concern is about as a farmer, if you look at most of the social media platforms being shared, either Facebook or Twitter, or things like that, we normally see some farm machinery equipment being advertised. If I have to use one like Alibaba, which I've also tried to buy something from them, we see some of these equipments that are very good for smallholder farmers. And then we see some of them, even the price a little bit relatively cheaper. And then you also see it also in processing equipment. Now, what is the effort of your organization or the government towards getting some of these equipment into Nigeria, now making the universities to either reproduce this thing in form of adapting some of this equipment to using local equipment that will be suitable for our own environment? Is there a kind of challenges in relation to IP on some of those equipments that we cannot try to refabricate them that will suit our own environment, that will be readily available for most of these our smallholder farmers, rather than still using the crude implements like cutlasses and hoe, that things like that. That is one of the area that is giving me a lot of concern. The number two is that is it possible to really make decentralize our university mandates, most especially the University of Agriculture, that because you are in this agroecological zone, you have to face some of the challenges that the farmers within agroecological zone are facing, and then find solution to some of the problems that they are facing, rather than looking for how to be given an award at a Wall Street in America or that things like that. Why can't we start from the home before we now talking about a university getting award in a foreign country? Finally, is that I love the organization that you have brought in terms of Opolo, which I think that I develop a kind of sentiment towards it as being a Yoruba word that is used. That's in that. Now that means you are starting from home, and if you still look at the adage in Nigeria that in Yoruba that ile lati kweshe that it is from the house that will take your prestige to the outside world. Why can't we start looking inward to solve our immediate challenges so that we'll be able to have impact among our community? The small research that I carry out in UNAB, Federal University of Agriculture in Abeokuta, I try to ask questions from the farmers within the 5 kilometers of where they are, that since the establishment of this University of Agriculture, what have you benefited as a farmer that you can say that it has transformed your life, that I can now conveniently say that I am a farmer and that my children are willing to be farmers with the presence of the University of Agriculture in our own environment? My findings is not that very interesting, as most of them are not even saying that they don't see the impact. So what can we do in this particular area? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Fola Yusuf. So, well, those are loaded questions, many of them beyond one institution in Accra here, to respond to or to act on. But I'll try to respond to that. Number one, the first point you raised about small-scale machineries. This is a big issue in Africa, in Nigeria as a whole. There has been several attempts, to try to drive indigenous homegrown solutions to implement irrigation facilities and so on. But I think what we lack is not the will or even the policy, but it's the collective action, the organizing framework that will bring together all the efforts to really drive this and achieve impact. Because if you look at our size, we're talking of an economy of over 200 million people. So that's quite a lot to see impact. If you compare it to other countries like Rwanda, for example, where they're doing fantastic in many of these areas, including the SDGs and the CADA goal. So there are various areas, but I think there's need for more collective action. And this collective action will come and will be driven in the future more by the private sector. And that's why Opolo is really very, very critical. And I think it's one of the most, the best things to ever happen actually to Nigeria, bringing together a non-governmental organization with this strong vested interest in driving the innovation ecosystem. And there's a lot that can be done in that area. And for zoning the agroecological zones, and I think already in the Ministry of Agriculture, there's some level of agroecological zoning, production zones. You have the grains, where you have the tubers, and so on. But again, maybe the lack of visibility of impact also is that lack of collective action and poor participation of the private sector in agribusiness and so on. Which brings me to your last point about the impact of research from university to the community, to the people. Earlier, I mentioned innovation platform here. Now, innovation platform is from the concept of integrated agriculture research for development, where you bring all different stakeholders. And one of the problems of Nigerian education over the years has been this idea that you just want to get published in the high impact journals so that you become professor, and that's it. the technologies and so on, they don't get to the hands of the end users. I will give you an example of myself. I was trained in Brazil. I did my master's and PhD in agricultural biotechnology, general, in Brazil. And by the time I was finalizing my PhD work, we had developed and patented a technology for the control of whitefly using a technology called RNA interference. So this was patented, and I was there looking at myself. Okay, you are somebody from Kura. I don't know if you know Kura. Kura is like 30 kilometers from the Kano city, Congo. And
I know Kura.
yeah. So, but I was there on the bench with these tubes, and we invented this technology. We went DNA and sequenced it, deposited the patent at the National Intellectual Property Commission. Fantastic. So I realized, wow, this means if I was in Nigeria and there was this, because there was really nothing drastically different from the things that I could have access to, except for that collective action, that institutional capacity, where you have the infrastructure, the electricity, and you know that farmers are out there, they're organized, there's private sector. Because even as we're working in the lab, as I was working in the lab, as a scientist, PhD, molecular biology, the farmers from places, private farmers, we were visiting them, they were coming. They were flying on helicopters to come and visit the lab. So you are there doing high-end science, but at the same time, you know that you're working to put a product on the table. In fact, you will not even graduate without putting something on the table. So this is what FARA presently is trying to bring in Nigeria. If you Google the word, the acronym ARIFA, is Agricultural Research and Innovation Fellowship for Africa, is a strategy that we're using to bring about this mindset change in Nigeria's research, so that scientists that are involved in agricultural research, they change their minds from just publishing, but to putting a product on the table. So currently we have a demand to train 620 Nigerians in Brazil, and at various levels, master's, PhD, postdoc, bench work. And when they come back, we are investing in their home institution. In 13 different institutions, we're investing in each about $100,000 to support them with seed fund to form innovation platform, all right? So that even as they publish their impact articles, they also put a product on the table. If you're from Kano, you need to focus around tomato. If you're from Umudike, you need to focus around cassava. If you're from Oyo, you need to focus around palm oil and so on, or cocoa. So that's what we're doing. But like I said, the impact is slow, it's painful, it will take a lot of time. But that's the situation. And again, we hope that there will be improvement in terms of government's support and enabling environment for all of these things to happen. So usually what you will learn with time is that you complain less and really try to do your part. As Akin Adesina, he always says this, when Akin Adesina is the president of African Development Bank. He says, before criticizing government, try governance first, So these are the issues, a lot of challenges, different angles, but we're there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So I think there's something from Babajide on the chat box. Let me see if I can. from Babatunde, something on a cashew, mini cashew processing line, and something from Wada Bello, about tomatoes post-harvest loss due to the fact that one company promised to buy their commodity, and I think is a communication between producers and buyers in that particular location. So, I want to say, yes, sir.
No, I'm sorry. Please finish. Finish.
No,
get to your point.
So I was actually trying to find out if there's any other comment coming up before, so you can go ahead, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So what I will say to this comment is get on to FARA website. You have our contact there, info@FARA. Once you send an email there with whatever demand or request you have, our knowledge management team, they know who to channel your issue to. So they will send it. And when if it concerns my own purview, my department, my unit, they will surely send it to me, and I'll be more than happy to support you. Sometimes all it takes is just connecting a stakeholder with another stakeholder, and our job is done. They find the solutions to their problem. So do check the FARA page and send an email. I will share the FARA website in the chat box.
Okay. So as I also mentioned to Babatunde also, I shared my email with him. So for any other discussion, you can also reach out to us here at Okpolo. So my email, I'll also share it with everyone again, is research@okpolo.global. Babatunde is same as I shared with you also, research@okpolo.global. Global. So that's my email address. So we can always we work from what our facilitator have said. You see a kind of a working relationship between us and FARA. So we can also take it there, or take it with them also in that area. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much, sir, for being part of the 5th edition of Research to Enterprise webinar session. We are grateful to have you, and it has promised, it has shown us that, yes, you are the right person to actually handle this session for us. So thank you so much. And I want to appeal that when next we call on you to come up in one of programs that will be coming up, you also avail us that opportunity to be present and make it work out for us. Thank you so much. Thank you to our participants from Plateau State, Maiduguri, Kano, and Lagos here. I thank you all from Ushogbo. I thank you all for being part of it. Without you, this session won't be this successful and progressing as it is. Thank you so much. Yeah, and our next webinar for April will be coming up. I want the technical team to just give us the flyer. So once it is out there, you can register and also be part of April webinar session. So the flyer will come up now, so we can, and we also share it in our social media platform handle, okpolo.global, our social media handle. It will be out there on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. So this is the next webinar coming up towards the successful implementation of the Climate Change Act 2022, the role of non-state actors. So from this webinar session, we discuss our the efforts and our role towards the food production and how it can also reduce the climate change. And now we're having this discussion. So what's our individual role to this to achieving the implementation of the Climate Change Act? So this is what will be coming up next month on the 8th of April, and it will be, our guest speaker is Dr. Ngozi Chinwa Uli. So I will appreciate to also see your faces again next month. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I join you from South Africa. This is Fola
Thank
Yusuf.
you, sir. Oh, thank you so much, sir. Oh, when you mentioned Funab, Federal University, I thought you are in Abeokuta. Okay.
Hello, I did my master's in UNAB. That was in the 90s. So, but I'm now in South Africa.
Oh, thank you so much.
So,
Yeah, I really appreciate
yeah,
that. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank
You're
you
welcome,
very
sir.
much. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I wish you all a blessed week. Remaining
Thank you.
days of the week.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, bye from here.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And please, Prof, has promised to share the slide with us. So I don't know, are you going to share it with us via email?
Yeah, it will be shared with you. Yeah, as you got the email for the link for this webinar session, it will be shared with you via email also. And a recording of this session will also be shared along with it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye.
So we expect to have you by April webinar session.
Yeah. Good feeling.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Yeah. Bye.